Welcome to my channel, the place where stories blur the line between fantasy and emotion, where adventure meets desire and danger hides behind every heartbeat. Tonight's story takes you deep into the heart of a world where beauty towers above fear, and one man's fate is rewritten by a tribe of giant women who see him not as prey, but as their last hope. He woke up on warm sand, the sky painted in orange and violet. The air was thick with the scent of flowers he didn't recognize, and the distant sound of drums echoed through the forest. His clothes were torn, his memory hazy. The last thing he remembered was the crash, his ship falling through a storm of lightning before everything went black. When he opened his eyes again, he wasn't alone. Shadows moved between the trees, tall, graceful figures, their voices low and melodic, like a song carried by the wind. Before he could stand, a hand large, smooth, and impossibly strong closed around his arm. He struggled, but it was useless. The figures stepped into the light, and he froze. They were women, giant, beautiful beyond reason, with skin that shimmered like moonlight and eyes glowing softly in the dark. One of them, taller than the rest, looked down at him with a strange mix of curiosity and hunger. "A human," she said softly, as if the word itself were a prayer. The prophecy spoke of his arrival. Before he could speak, they bound his hands with vines and led him through the forest toward towering stone gates carved with faces of women who had ruled long before. The tribe gathered as he entered their village. Fires burned in circles, painting their golden skin with a soft glow. He could feel their eyes on him, hundreds of them, watching, whispering. The leader stood before him, wearing a crown made of woven silver leaves. She circled him slowly, her expression unreadable. "You are the last male this land will ever see," she said. "Our men vanished with the dying sun, and without children, our bloodline will fade. You, human, have come to fulfill the ancient promise." Her words sent a chill through him. He tried to protest, but the crowd began to chant. Low, rhythmic, desperate. As night deepened, they took him to a chamber carved into the mountainside. The walls glowed faintly with crystals, and in the center stood the queen. Her voice softened. "Do not fear us," she whispered. "You are not our prisoner. You are our answer." She moved closer, her warmth almost overwhelming, her beauty unreal. For the first time, he saw the loneliness in her eyes, the burden of an entire race resting on her shoulders. She touched his face gently, and for a moment he forgot to breathe. The silence between them became something alive, something that burned. But there was more, something hidden behind her tenderness. When dawn came, he realized that not all the women shared the queen's kindness. Some wanted him for power, others for revenge. Whispers spread through the tribe, rumors that the prophecy was cursed, that bringing life back to their kind would awaken something dangerous. The man found himself torn between trust and fear, desire and survival. The queen offered him sanctuary, but her rivals plotted in the shadows. That night, he heard footsteps outside his chamber and saw one of the warriors, fierce and breathtaking, slip inside with eyes full of fire. "She cannot have you alone," she hissed, pressing close enough for him to feel her heartbeat. The line between temptation and betrayal began to blur. As the storm gathered outside, the queen returned, her fury quiet but deadly. The sky trembled as thunder rolled through the mountains. The tribe was on the edge of chaos. The queen took his hand, her voice shaking. "They do not understand. The prophecy wasn't just about rebirth, it was about choice. You can save us, or destroy us." The ground shook beneath them, and he realized what she meant. The crystals on the walls pulsed, reacting to him, glowing brighter with his heartbeat. The queen's people fell to their knees in awe and terror. He had become the center of something ancient, something divine. The night ended with silence and a sunrise painted in gold. The tribe bowed before him, their eyes filled with hope and fear. The queen stood beside him, her hand in his, both rulers of a new dawn. He didn't know what the future held, but he felt the pull of destiny, the mix of love, lust, and fate that had bound him to these giants forever. The wind carried their chant across the valley, echoing like a promise that could never die. Thank you for watching till the end. If this story stirred your imagination, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales where fantasy meets passion. Your support keeps the fire of storytelling alive. See you in the next one. The vines bit gently into his wrists as they led him deeper into the village, the scent of burning herbs and wet earth wrapping around him like a heavy cloak. The air was warm but thick with tension, and every step echoed with the sound of bare feet on stone. The women towered over him, their long hair flowing like rivers of gold and black, their movements slow and powerful. The queen walked ahead of them, her back straight, her crown glinting in the firelight. She didn't look back at him once, and somehow that made his heart pound harder. The crowd grew denser as they reached the center of the village. A massive stone circle rose from the ground, engraved with symbols that pulsed faintly with light. Dozens of giant women stood around it, their bodies painted with silver lines that shimmered like moonlight on water. The moment the queen stepped inside the circle, the chanting began. It was low at first, almost like a hum, then it grew louder, surrounding him from every side. The sound vibrated through his bones, making it hard to breathe. They brought him to his knees before the queen. She stared down at him, her expression calm but her eyes burning with something fierce. "The stars have spoken," she said softly, her voice carrying through the crowd. "The last man has come to us. Our blood must not die with the wind. You are here to give us what the sun stole away." The chanting stopped. The silence after it was sharp, like the pause before a storm. He looked up at her, confused and breathless, and in that moment, he realized this wasn't a choice they were giving him. This was fate, one he didn't understand yet. A warm hand touched his shoulder. He turned and saw another woman, younger than the queen but just as breathtaking, with dark hair and wild green eyes. Her touch wasn't harsh like the others. Her fingers trembled slightly, as if even she was unsure about what they were about to do. She leaned close and whispered, "Don't fight them. It's bigger than you." Then she pulled back, her face becoming unreadable again, swallowed by the role she was forced to play. The queen raised her hands toward the sky, and the night seemed to lean in closer. A soft golden glow spilled from the stones around them, wrapping the village in light. The women lifted their heads, their eyes reflecting the glow like fire in a storm. The queen's voice turned to a soft chant, ancient and strange, but he felt the meaning of it deep in his chest. This was no simple ritual. This was a promise, a bond they were about to carve into his destiny. He felt the pull of something powerful, something primal, as the weight of every gaze in that circle locked onto him. The queen finally lowered her arms and stepped closer, so close he could feel the heat of her breath on his skin. "You are no longer lost," she whispered. "You belong to us now." And in the silence that followed, the crowd bowed, their voices breaking into a single word, repeated over and over. A word he couldn't understand, but one that made the ground beneath him tremble. The world he had known was gone. Whatever waited for him here had already begun. The fires burned lower as the night deepened, their warm orange glow flickering across the stone circle. The chanting faded, replaced by a heavy silence that made his heartbeat sound too loud in his ears. The women began to move back slowly, forming a wide ring around him, their eyes never leaving his face. He could feel the weight of their stares, not cruel, but filled with something far more dangerous, expectation. The queen stepped forward, her bare feet gliding across the smooth stone, her long hair trailing behind her like a river of gold. Her presence alone quieted the air, and every woman around her bowed their heads slightly, as if even the wind obeyed her. She raised a hand, and two warriors stepped from the shadows behind him. Their bodies were strong, their arms firm as they lifted him to his feet with ease. He didn't fight, not because he had accepted his fate, but because the power surrounding him felt almost alive, like invisible hands pressing against his chest. The queen circled him slowly, close enough that he could smell her skin. A soft scent of wildflowers and something older, something that didn't belong to this world. Her voice came low, almost a whisper. "There is a reason you are here. Our bloodline is dying. We prayed to the stars for a savior." The stars gave us you. Her words felt like chains and wings at the same time. A soft breeze moved through the village, carrying the distant sound of the sea. He looked up at the glowing carvings on the stones, their light pulsing like a heartbeat. It wasn't just a symbol, it was alive. He felt a faint vibration in his bones, as if the ground itself was trying to speak to him. A shiver ran down his spine, and the queen's lips curved into a knowing smile. "You feel it, don't you?" she whispered. "The bond between your blood and this land. You were never just a wanderer. You were chosen long before you were born." The younger woman with the green eyes stepped forward again. Her movements were careful, her eyes searching his face for something. She reached out, touching his hand lightly, her skin warm against his. In that brief touch, something passed between them. An unspoken warning, a silent plea. Her lips parted, as if she wanted to speak. But then the queen turned her gaze on her, and she stepped back like a shadow disappearing into darkness. It was clear there were secrets here, cracks beneath the beauty of the tribe. The queen placed her hand over his heart. The warmth of her palm burned through his skin, and the carvings around them flared brighter. The air hummed with energy. Her voice slipped into a low chant, different from the ritual before. It was softer, more intimate, like the whisper of a storm just before it breaks. He felt something push inside him. Not pain, not pleasure, but a pull, like the land itself had wrapped invisible strings around his soul. "You belong to us," she breathed, her lips inches from his ear. "But the bond is not complete. The night will decide if you are worthy." The sky darkened further, clouds swirling above the village like a silent storm. The wind rose, carrying the sound of distant drums that hadn't been there before. Every woman lifted her head, their faces glowing in the firelight. The queen stepped back and raised both arms toward the heavens, and the glowing symbols began to spin slowly, casting light across the ground like a living star map. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. The night was far from over, and the mystery that had wrapped itself around him had only just begun. The drums grew louder as the sky twisted into a sea of rolling black clouds, their edges burning faintly with silver light. The air grew warm and electric, and every woman in the circle fell to her knees except the queen. She stood tall at the center of it all, the storm seeming to bend toward her like she was its heartbeat. He felt the pull stronger now, wrapping around his chest like invisible fingers, drawing him closer to her. Her golden hair whipped through the wind as she turned her gaze on him, and for the first time, he saw something deeper beneath her calm face. A hunger, a desperation, and something that almost looked like fear. She walked toward him slowly, her long legs cutting through the swirling air like a goddess descending from the stars. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the spinning symbols carved into the ground. "The night is listening," she whispered, her voice barely carried by the storm. "If you run, it will devour you. If you stay, it may claim you. But if you accept it, the bond will make you more than a man." Her words sank into him like warm water, terrifying and seductive all at once. Behind her, the younger woman with the green eyes watched him closely. Her fingers clenched tight, her breath shallow, as if she knew what was coming and hated it. The queen lifted her hands and placed them gently on his cheeks, her skin warmer than fire. The world narrowed until there was only her face, her breath, her eyes. She pressed her forehead against his, and in that touch, everything around them disappeared. He felt flashes, images that weren't his. Vast plains covered in flowers, cities carved into cliffs, men with faces like his walking among giants. Then fire, then silence. She pulled away, her lips trembling as if she had shared a part of her soul with him. "Do you see?" she murmured. "Our world remembers you." The drums quickened. The warriors rose again, surrounding them like a living wall of bronze skin and painted symbols. They began to chant, not in rhythm with the storm, but against it, pushing something ancient into the night. The queen's body moved closer, the space between them gone now, and the firelight danced across their skin like a promise. Her fingers slid down his arms, slow and deliberate, leaving trails of heat. Her voice was almost a breath. This is the beginning. The bond between us is more than desire, it's survival. The young woman stepped forward suddenly, her voice cutting through the ritual like a blade. He doesn't understand, she shouted, her green eyes blazing. You're binding him without his will. The chanting faltered for a moment. A hush fell across the circle. The queen turned to her slowly, her eyes dark and dangerous. The stars do not wait for consent, she replied softly. They choose. The storm cracked with thunder as their gazes locked, and he realized he was standing between two powers that could shatter everything around him. The ground trembled beneath their feet. The symbols burned brighter, casting sharp shadows across the village. The queen reached for him again, her grip firm, unshakable. Choose now, she whispered. Run into the dark and be devoured, or step into destiny and become what the stars intended. His breath caught, the air around him heavy, the drums echoing in his skull like a second heartbeat. For the first time since waking in this strange land, he understood the weight of his presence. This wasn't just about desire or survival anymore. This was a storm, and he was standing at its center. The storm howled as if the night itself had a voice, the silver light in the sky burning brighter, spilling across the village like a river of fire. Every woman's eyes were fixed on him now, some with awe, others with hunger, and a few with a quiet, dangerous envy. He could feel their expectation pressing against his skin, like 100 hands reaching for him at once. The queen didn't move. She stood in front of him, tall and radiant, her breath mingling with the wind. Her grip on his arm tightened, not cruelly, but as if she was holding on to the one thing keeping her world from collapsing. She pulled him closer, their bodies just inches apart, and the ground seemed to pulse beneath their feet. The storm is listening, she whispered, her voice soft and low, trembling with power. It wants your answer. Her golden hair wrapped around her shoulders like threads of light, and the glowing markings on the ground began to shift, curling toward him like living roots. He felt warmth crawl through his legs, up his spine, filling his chest with something that didn't belong to him. The world blurred for a moment. The earth, the sky, the fire, everything was breathing with him. The younger woman with the green eyes moved forward again, breaking the wall of chanting warriors. Her steps were light but fearless, her jaw tight with defiance. She touched his other arm, her warmth softer, shakier. Don't let them trap you, she whispered, voice barely a breath. There's more to this than they've told you. Once you take the bond, you can never break it. You'll belong to the land, and to them. Her words cut through the air like a blade. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Two hands on him, two paths pulling in opposite directions. The queen's eyes flashed with something sharp. She turned to the younger woman, her voice smooth but filled with quiet power. This is bigger than either of us. The prophecy isn't a lie. She looked back at him, her fingers sliding up his chest slowly, as if she could feel the storm's heartbeat through him. You were chosen to save us. And if you accept, this world will never let you go. Her words were a promise and a threat wrapped in silk. Lightning flashed, lighting the stone circle like a crown. The women around them began to sway with the storm, chanting faster now. The air grew hotter, wrapping around him like a fever. He could see it clearly now. Their desperation wasn't born of cruelty, but of survival. Without him, their world would fade. And yet, beneath the queen's glowing gaze, he felt the weight of something dangerous, something that would devour every part of him. The queen leaned closer, her lips brushing against his ear. Say yes, she breathed, and you will become the storm. The younger woman tightened her grip, her breath shaky. Say no, she whispered, and you can still run tonight. His heart pounded against his ribs like a drum, his breath uneven, the storm echoing every beat. The glowing vines twisted higher, wrapping around his ankles, waiting for his choice. One step forward would bind him forever. One step back could send him into a night that might never let him return. The chanting roared again, and the storm answered with a deafening crack of thunder. Every eye burned into him, but it wasn't just their gaze he felt. It was the land itself, calling him like a heartbeat beneath his feet. The queen's lips hovered near his, close enough that he could taste the warmth of her breath, and in that moment, he knew the next breath he took would decide not just his fate, but theirs. The storm reached its breaking point, the sky glowing silver like the edge of a blade, thunder curling through the mountains and shaking the ground beneath the stone circle. The vines that had risen around his ankles now glimmered with a faint, breathing light, as if alive. The queen stood inches away from him, her golden hair whipping wildly around her face, her eyes burning brighter than the fires surrounding them. She didn't speak this time. She didn't have to. Everything in her gaze begged him to take that final step toward her, to surrender, to become theirs. The younger woman's hand trembled on his arm, her touch soft but desperate, a quiet plea buried beneath the roar of the storm. Her green eyes shimmered with fear, not for herself but for him. "If you step forward, you'll never leave this place," she whispered, her voice shaking like a candle in the wind. "You'll be their king, their prisoner, their everything. You'll belong to them forever." Her words wrapped around his chest tighter than the vines could. For a second, the storm seemed to fade away, leaving only her voice and the queen's breath against his skin. The chanting rose again, louder than before, the sound vibrating through the stones like an ancient heartbeat waking up. The queen placed a hand over his heart, pressing firmly as if she could feel his blood calling to her land. "This world will bend for you," she whispered. "You will father a new dawn. You will become the blood that saves us." Her other hand slid behind his neck, pulling him closer until their foreheads touched again. The storm answered, swirling faster around them, their breath mixing with the wind. It wasn't just a ritual anymore. It was a moment where the entire world held its breath. He closed his eyes, the air hot against his skin, his pulse pounding in his ears. He could feel the two forces pulling at him, the queen's power, vast and consuming, and the younger woman's touch, soft but human. One was a promise of a throne built on desire and destiny. The other was a path into the unknown. And then, without a word, he took a slow breath, feeling the storm fold itself into his chest like a living thing. His foot lifted, his heart burned, and the world tilted. The vines tightened, wrapping higher around his legs as the queen's lips hovered a breath away. The carvings on the ground burst into brilliant light, painting the entire village in gold and silver. The women fell silent as the energy rose from the earth like fire, surrounding him and the queen in a swirling halo. The younger woman stepped back slowly, her green eyes glistening with something between sorrow and hope. She whispered something too soft to catch, then turned away into the shadows. The queen smiled, soft and victorious, her voice a whisper that melted into the storm. "You belong to us now." And as the light exploded outward, the storm bowed to him like a living creature. The chanting became a song, sweet and sharp, echoing through the valley like a new beginning. He felt the land breathing with him, their world now tied to his heartbeat. His old life had vanished with the wind. From that night on, he would never be just a man again. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this journey, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories where fantasy, passion, and mystery collide. Your support keeps these worlds alive, and the next story might just take you somewhere even wilder.